Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and today we're back with Realms of Ruin. And today we're going to be playing against some devs, so 2v2 once again. This is myself playing as a Stormcast, finally playing as the Hallowed Knights, which is the Stormcast that I actually do like. We got another Stormcast player on my side versus two devs who are playing as the Nighthaunt. We figured we'd go back to like first edition style battles. And this one's quite fun because you can see that this map is radically different to what we've seen so far in Realms of Ruin. Not only is it facing north to south, meaning that you've got more of a distance to travel upwards rather than the usual maps that we've seen, which have actually been more east to west, but it's also got 5 capture points rather than 3. This is one of the larger maps, which is going to mean that you're going to be fighting a lot more. As you can tell, the capture points are very closely together, especially capture point 1, 4, and 5. Meaning that, again, you still have to have the majority, but there's going to be a lot of heavy pushing that you need to do. So obviously I was in voice comms with the other player, which makes it easier. But the plan was, as soon as we saw it, was we need to push forward, right? The problem is, from my experience at the very least, the Nighthaunt are fairly strong, and I still aren't really that good with the Stormies. I mostly played as the Uruks when we had those open betas. So the thing is, if I'm going to learn, I'm going to have to learn now. So the plan was, as usual, we have to start pushing forward. We're trying to make sure that we can get as many capture points as possible, but since the resources don't share, this is an important thing to note, we are trying to make sure that we are splitting it as evenly as possible too. The interesting thing is that the Nighthaunt players were playing as fast and aggressive as they could. They literally just started going straight down. It's one of those things, this is a horde-ish faction, so the Nighthaunts do have faster map control, but you need to make sure that you can hold everything because you're going to be hit hard, especially with Stormcast hammers. So, how is this going to work now? We were already planning on other things, right? We were able to control 2 points very early. Pushing up at the beginning isn't really going to be much of a problem, considering that the Nighthaunt are going to be spread out quite dramatically. So the plan is just to spam units as quickly as possible, get to that unit cap, and just really get there. I'm pushing up from the right-hand side. We've got my ally pushing up through the middle. He's going to be doing most of the grunt work at this one, I think. But then again, if I recall, the player did say that they had more experience with the Stormcast than I did. And yeah, there's going to be a lot of back and forth in this battle, which I think shows how good this game can actually be. I know a lot of people were saying it looks slow, but at the beginning, all these types of games look slow. Hell, it's like people forgotten about Dawn of War 2. At the very beginning, it is slow. It just depends on the faction that you're playing, as some of them can be quite faster. I feel like if you want a faster game with Realms of Ruin, you're going to want to play Nighthaunt or possibly the Uruk Kruleboys, as you can spam out the Hobgrots quite quickly. The Stormcast and the Disciples, yeah, they're a bit slower, but again, it's all down to balancing. Now, I must admit that one of my faults is that I focus way too heavily on melee when it comes to the Stormcast. I should really be using more of the flyers and the range units, but I was going with the whole, you know, hammer and shield aspect, just really tanking as much as possible. The heroes do help with that, obviously, because you do have some pretty good heals, but yeah, I mean, overall, it's not a bad experience. It does allow for a lot of different playstyles, and it really depends on how you're going to get into it. I feel like getting used to the races is going to take a few games to find the perfect playstyle for you. The rosters themselves might not be too large, but they're large enough to allow for you to experiment. It's the thing with Age of Sigmar, right? Now the rosters aren't as large as, say, Warhammer Fantasy Battle, because it's still a relatively new game system, which, yeah, natural for Games Workshop. And let's be honest, you don't really need like 10,000 different types of unit types when you've got the grand majority of stuff and you do have the variety. But yeah, so we're going to try and push as far in as possible. The idea is literally hold them down, and I think that it's a strength of ours. As you can see, we've already got a very, very large chunk of the map at this point. There's going to be a little bit of pushback, but I feel for the most cases for this type of stuff, yeah, you're able to hold down quite well. There are a lot of mistakes that I make in my part because I get a little bit overzealous and I'm like, well, you know, we've got this, we might as well push a little bit further. This is why this mission's a little bit shorter in terms of length. It's mostly because I've been able to just really play aggressive, and I'm one of those types of people. It was one of my big issues too in Warcraft 3. I was a very aggressive player, which is why I mostly played with the orcs. I feel like they had the best one for aggression, but as you could already see there, I did make the mistake of pushing in too far, which meant that the Nighthaunt were just taking me out very, very quickly. Thankfully, retreating is an option. Sometimes I forget that that's a thing. But yeah, you see, I'm getting pushed back now. My ally's still pushing fairly well in. He does have more troops than me at this point. I believe he got his upgrade done early, whereas I was getting some unit upgrades, you know, just a few stat bonuses and so on, just to make sure that they could hold down as much as they could. I'll be very honest with you, the more that I've seen the Nighthaunt, the more I kind of like them. It's a shame that I was only able to play as them once, but timed events, unfortunately, I wanted to play at least as every faction once, whilst also testing out some other functionalities within the game. But they do seem like a faction that I would very much enjoy, especially since they have Mourngulls. I'm a massive fan of the Mourngul model. But yeah, okay, so we lost a little bit of territory, mostly because I decided to run back to save as many troops as possible. My ally suffered too. You can see that there's going to be a lot of back and forth. Right now, we're still in the lead though, mostly because, again, Stormcast very, very strong. You get some upgrades up there, you're fine. I also now, at this point, will be getting close to getting to 10 unit capacity for population cap, which means that I'm going to be able to get a lot more to push out. Mostly just focusing on a few Liberators, a few Vanguards too, because the Vanguards have been relatively decent, I must say. They're not a unit that I would generally go for, but a little bit of range, especially when you're dealing with the Nighthaunt that do have some fairly decent range too. You're going to want a little bit of back and forth there. Now the thing is, we could easily win if we just held 3 points, but that's no fun, right? Camping doesn't really add to an enjoyable battle. Playing it safe is an easy way to win, but yeah, like at the end of the day, you want to actually see some combat. And it would just not be fun if we camped in points 4 and 5, because, again, yeah, we want more. So now pushing in, now with a bunch more troops, the idea is getting in there again. I need to learn, and this is a big thing, you need to realize that your commanders are very, very important. Using them to heal is also something that would be very beneficial, which I didn't really do enough of. It's getting used to the micro. I didn't really have as much time during the open betas as you guys did because I was busy with other stuff, and when these events come up, it usually just throws you into a... well, it just throws you into the deep end. So it's just learning. It's been a while since I've played, so relearning the faction, because unless I'm playing constantly or at least very close to each other, I will start to forget how to do stuff. It's not that difficult though. It's one of these games where it's kind of like riding a bicycle, which is very, very good. I've got a lot of hope for this title. I've honestly got a lot of hope. I feel like if this title does well and gets more DLCs, more factions, it'll be better, mostly because more variety, and variety is obviously the spice of life. But starting off with 4 factions is something that we've seen in a large variety of Warhammer games, not just Total War, but we've seen that with the Dawn of War series too. So I feel like it's in a very good point. Personal hope for me in the future, I'd love to see larger maps. I'd love to see 3v3s and 4v4s, but I imagine that they decided not to do that just to see firstly how this is going to work. Not that the devs have no faith in their product, it's more the case of trying to be cautious, I guess, because you have to keep in mind that first up, this style of Warhammer game only really existed with Dawn of War 2, and that was received fairly well, but it was a long time ago. And secondly, and I feel like the most important thing is, it's an Age of Sigmar product. Age of Sigmar is still in this infancy stage, so it's better to start off with smaller maps and then go from there. Though we've seen that, you know, the single player campaign is very, very well written, is very structured, so a lot more emphasis on story building, world building, and then expanding from there, I think is a very smart thing to do. We haven't really had a lot of Age of Sigmar games. There was one which had a lot of promise but then died at launch, surprise, surprise. I did warn people about that though, because the publisher for that game specifically, and I don't want to talk badly about it, but it's more the case is, yeah, that publisher was known to have a lot of Warhammer titles under their belt and just abandon it shortly after launch because they've made their main money. It sucks when that happens, which is why I've been so happy that Frontier have gotten the Age of Sigmar license now, because they are one of these people who will do a lot of DLCs and stuff. They'll keep the game supported. I believe Jurassic World has just recently had something, and that's a pretty fun game. I've actually been playing it in my time off because I quite enjoy that. So I'm not 100% too sure. I feel like I did ask a dev, but I didn't write the note down. I believe flying units can, or better yet said, do have capture weight, meaning that they can capture stuff while still in the air. Thankfully, I had some range units. I know some people might not like that, but it kind of makes sense to be able to do that. It means that they can snipe stuff, and base sniping has always been a thing. It's always been a thing in like Dawn of War 2 too, which is more or less what the format is based here. So that obviously does mean keep your eye open for the potential of flyers coming over and capturing points. Funny enough, we're actually getting to that point in the video, so you can see them going around and actually just taking a location from me, which is obviously very smart. Those types of tactics you want to actually do. I love the idea that the option is there. It's a bit scary though, because obviously, you know, the Storm Drakes are terrifying, which thankfully we'll be using here, but it's more of the case of, you know, you've got to plan ahead, you've got to make sure that you've got your locations in good view, and more the case, don't use your whole army, don't have everything just going into one location, which is a fault that I have, which obviously means that I've got to learn a little bit. But splitting up your forces, going to different locations, having one more as a backward protective force or supporting your ally also does help quite dramatically. It's always been here that you've seen in the middle line. We've been pushing forward, we've been getting pushed back. It's been like that for so far, what, 11 minutes or so of the game? And it's a good thing. I like the idea of back and forth, back and forth. Keep in mind that these devs could have been playing a little bit easy on us just to showcase stuff. And it could just be that these devs might be more versatile on other factions, because I had about, I think it was 5 battles total, and there was a case that one of them, we were getting pushed back quite heavily. There's going to be factions that people are better with than others, and it's always been the case for that. I mean, I was tremendously bad with the Tyranids in Dawn of War 2, but I was fairly good with the Space Marines. It just depends on what you're used to, and it's the good thing. The different playstyles will add for more things for you to learn, more things for you to explore. I want this to do well. Honestly, I think it's very obvious with how I'm talking about this title that I do want this to do well, because I feel like Age of Sigmar right now deserves a game that is going to kind of give them a little bit more notice in more positive light. It's very obvious that the Nighthaunt might not be as strong at the very beginning, mostly because they're swarming with weaker troops, but as time is progressing, as you can see here, they pushed us back in both sides, and that's obviously going to be a bit of a concern. I'm talking about myself and my team partner here, as we weren't really expecting them to start hitting so hard. I mean, I've been not really upgrading troops as much, which is definitely a mistake on my part. I'm not too sure about my partners, we can't really see each other's tech trees and so on, but yeah, it's very obvious. Now I need to start making sure that I'm getting some upgrades up, or else I'm going to get pushed back too far. It's pretty interesting to see how faction strength does change as you start unlocking more troops. I feel like the Stormcast one is a bit more gradual, mostly because like the beginning Stormcast themselves are quite strong, but you do see a very big push with the Nighthaunt and with the Disciples of Tzeentch. I feel like as you get to a point there's a massive jump between, like, say for example, the Kirik Acolytes to Zangors, and here, as they start getting more upgrades, you can see it just really change for the Nighthaunt, which is good, which is honestly very, very good. It shows again that things are very different. I've got my Storm Drake guard now, which is another reason why I wasn't spending too much cash. I was like, well, I really want to have one of those dragons, because, you know, dragons, they're always going to be super cool. And let's be honest, they're very strong. They have been balanced a little bit compared to what we had originally. The first beta, which showed that the dragons were a little bit too strong. So they're a bit weaker now, but not weak that they're just not going to get used. It's more the case like they're not horrendously overpowered. And I feel that's a good thing. You can see that my army is mostly focused on Liberators, by the way. I do like a good Liberator front line. I feel like it does work quite well. And every now and then a Steam achievement pops up, because we're using a machine that they have. Because obviously this was the whole Parsec situation. It's kind of funny. It's like, no context Steam achievements popping up, which did kind of throw me off every now and then. You might have noticed when they do, because it happens a lot during the battles, and it's just I stop for like a half a second going, wait, what just happened? But yeah, the dragon's still pretty strong. I did notice there was a little bit of a delay when it came to its damage output. Not sure if that was intended or is just me not paying attention, but either way, it does basically get near enough to deleting a unit, especially with the fireball. All in all, like you can see, the push is very, very strong. I'm honestly fairly certain that my army composition was just not that good, but yeah, we've got that. My allies got a Storm Drake himself, so at this point we are literally just going to be steamrolling a little bit. We do see that, for example, they've got Hex Raves, and the Hex Raves themselves do a lot of damage. I did try to take out the buildings. I need to start taking out their bases better. It's a little bit of fault on my part, but it's the case of we want to just hold them. The perfect ideas and what we were talking about a lot on voice comms was let's just take them and push them all the way to the literal last point that they can have, mostly just to see if that was actually possible, because those types of things make you then think, okay, if it can happen to them, it can happen to us, so that needs to be thought out on how can I avoid this myself as a player. Overall, I'm pretty excited for this title, I must admit, and hopefully it won't be too long until I get to experience the full title and, you know, give you a proper in-depth review. So, you know, I like to wait until I have at least 100 hours game time to be able to really do a proper review of stuff. Stuff like this is more just like first impressions, but yeah, I'm enjoying it. I'm actually really liking the fact that devs are taking their time out of their day to play and actually play against creators and so on. It's something that you don't see fairly often. Like, it's very, very rare. But yeah, I'm going to let the rest of the battle play out so you can hear the sound design a little better and just in general. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comments below. Let's start a bit of a discussion, and I'll see you all again very, very soon, guys. Have a good day.
Our bolts are ready.
We are Sigmar!
Our battle line is losing ground. Draconic flame stream.
Liberators ready.
The tide of battle is shifting against our favor.
Stand ready for the Heldenhammer.
We are Sigmar's storm. We can see the enemy.
Our battle line is losing ground. Prosecutors have joined the army. We are dominating a vital area of the battlefield. Our soldiers do Sigmar proud.
Glory to his ear. The enemy will fear my blade.
We follow Sigmar's will.
Our strength grows with the arrival of a unit of prosecutors.
None can withstand us.
Liberators awaiting your command.
Move, my great steed.
Ready to crush them. I call upon the hammer. Our hammers are ready.
We must prevent the enemy taking ground. The enemy have wiped out one of our units.
We bring death!
Sigmar's warriors return. Draconic flames.
We are the...
In the name of Sigmar, we claim victory.